Incoming transmission.
Greetings, Trekkers, Trekkies, Blurs, and Nerds. I'm Will, and welcome to another episode of Senior Nerd Presents Blur Trek. Happy Star Trek Day 2025, everyone. For over half a century, Star Trek has been more than just a television show. It has been a promise, a vision of a future where humanity has overcome its petty differences and united, reaching for the stars. It told us that our best days were ahead of us, that exploration was our noble calling, and that the greatest discoveries were not of new worlds, but of ourselves. It was a cultural touchstone, a beacon of optimism that inspired generations to look up at the night sky and wonder. But on this Star Trek Day 2025, that promise feels uncertain, caught in a cosmic tug-of-war between honoring its profound legacy and chasing the fleeting trends of modern streaming. Star Trek is at a critical crossroad. This conflict threatens to tear the franchise apart, leaving it adrift in a sea of content barely recognizable through those who loved it most. So, what must Star Trek do to stay relevant? To find the answer, we must first examine its current identity crisis and the complex conundrum it faces. Then, we need to bridge the generational gap between its fans, lay out a clear roadmap for relevance, and finally, cast a new vision for the future. To move forward, Star Trek must first remember what made it great. So, going to Section 1, the identity crisis. The central problem facing Star Trek today is an identity crisis. Is it a platform for philosophical exploration, or is it a high-concept action franchise? The original series and its successor were never just about phaser fights and exploding consoles. They were allegories. They used the vacuum of space to hold a mirror up to society, tackling issues of racism, war, politics, and the very definition of life itself. The science fiction was the vehicle, but the destination was always the human condition. Even in the 90s, this tension existed. Deep Space Nine pioneered heavily serialized stories, exploring the moral compromises of war and religion in ways the franchise had never seen. Voyager, in contrast, was largely a return to the episodic exploration, while Enterprise began with that spirit but lost steam, shifting to darker, serialized arcs in a bid to find an audience, a move that proved divisive. This push and pull truly ignited with the 2009 Kelvin Universe films, which prioritized high-octane action to attract a new generation of moviegoers. Modern Trek on television has also followed that trend, leaving fans divided. The heavy serialized, darker tones of Discovery and Picard proved polarizing for audiences accustomed to standalone philosophical tales, while the animated comedy of Lower Decks found a niche with its loving parody of Trek tropes. It was the widespread acclaim for Strange New Worlds, which returned to that optimistic format, episodic format, that proved the deeper hunger for classic storytelling still exists. And with Starfleet Academy on the horizon for 2026, the jury is still out on the franchise's dominant direction. The recent Section 31 streaming movie, which premiered back in January of this year, 2025, serves as a cautionary tale. Despite a high-concept spy premise and a starring role for Academy Award winner Michelle Yeoh, it was met with mixed to negative fans from critics and fans alike. Many found it to be a grim and derivative entry that strayed too far from the franchise's core tenets. While when the focus shifts entirely to espionage and more compromise without the counterbalance of hope and idealism, it ceases to feel like Star Trek. And the franchise succeeds when it remembers that TNG was beloved for episodes that not only explored complex moral questions, but also it deepened its characters and broadened its appeal beyond simple science fiction spectacle. Action must be a consequence of the story, not the reason for it. So, turning to section 2, you definitely have to deal with the Canon Conundrum. With nearly 60 years of history, Star Trek's canon is both its greatest asset and its heaviest burden. For longtime fans, this history provides a rich tapestry of lore, characters, and events that create a deep sense of continuity. For characters and for new creators, however, it can feel like a narrative minefield where any misstep can provoke the ire of a very passionate and deep fan base. This conundrum has led to a canon conundrum. How do you innovate and tell new stories without contradicting or disrespecting what came before it? The initial launch of Star Trek The Next Generation definitely provides a crucial lesson. In 1987, it faced immense skepticism from fans of the original series for its new characters and different tone. Yet it succeeded not by imitating its predecessors, but while forging its own identity, while remaining true to Star Trek's foundational values of optimism and exploration. It respected the legacy without being imprisoned by it. Modern Trek must learn this lesson. Canon should not be a checklist of references or a rigid set of rules to be policed. It should be a foundation upon which to build. It's about understanding the spirit of the established universe, not just the letter of the law. We've even heard about pitches like Star Trek United, a political thriller concept that would follow Captain Archer's career as Federation president. Now, while the specific idea hasn't been greenlit, it does show a desire to explore new genres while still being fundamentally Trek. The goal should be to make the universe feel bigger, not smaller and more insular. Now, turn it to section 3, the generational gap. And perhaps the most significant challenge is the generational gap. How does a franchise born in 1960 attract a 2020's audience without alienating the loyal fans who have kept it alive since the 1960s? This is the central conflict. Younger viewers, raised on binge watching and the fast-paced, interconnected narratives of franchises like the MCU, have different expectations. Legacy fans, however, often yearn for the episodic idea of the week format that defined earlier eras. Trying to be everything to everyone can result in a show that pleases no one. Paramount's answer appears to be diversification, and it's a real strength. The franchise has been experimenting with different tones and formats to reach a wider audience, from the adult comedy of Lower Decks to the family-friendly adventures of Star Trek Prodigy, and even the new scripted podcast series that will launch today on Star Trek Day, September 8th, 2025. This is not a weakness, it is a strength. The upcoming Starfleet Academy series, set for a 2026 debut, is the next big step in this strategy. It will be set in the 32nd century and a focus on a new generation of cadets, a premise designed to be a fresh entry point for younger audiences. By creating multiple distinct ways into the universe, Starfleet and Star Trek can cater to different tastes. Not every show has to be for every fan. This approach allows the franchise to cultivate new audiences, while series like Strange New Worlds continue to show and prove that the more traditional exploratory storytelling that older fans cherish can work. If our analysis is resonating with your own ship's computer, do us a favor here on the channel and engage that like and subscribe button. We appreciate you beaming into our community for future transmissions. Now, let's turn to Section 4, the roadmap for relevance. So, what is the blueprint for Star Trek's future? It's not about choosing the past or the present, but about synthesizing the lessons of both into a cohesive vision. There has to be a clear roadmap forward. And I'm going to give you my thoughts as far as what those are. First, you need to respect the core, but evolve the story. Like TNG, new shows must be brave enough to crave and carve their own path. They must embrace Star Trek's core principles of optimism, diversity, and the belief in a better future, while applying them to new formats and contemporary themes. Whether it's political drama, survival humor, horror, or pure adventure, the story must always be guided by this foundational ethos. Second, forge new narrative frontiers. Beyond just evolving the format, the franchise must also seek out new kinds of stories. For too long, Star Trek has revisited well-worn territory. Looking at you right now, Strange New Worlds. The holodeck malfunction, the temporal loop, the misunderstanding with a powerful alien. To be truly relevant, it must tackle new science fiction concepts and ask questions that resonate with the anxieties and hopes of today. Not just echo the allegories of the past. It's time to move beyond retelling familiar stories with minor tweaks and instead chart a course for genuinely unexplored narrative territory. Third, character and theme must always be king. Spectacle is a tool, not a goal. The franchise's most enduring moments are not CGI battles, but quiet conversations. Think about it. Picard grappling with his humanity. Sisko confronting his role as a religious icon, or Spock and McCoy debating logic versus emotion. Rich character arcs and relevant social commentary are what give the franchise its timeless quality and are essential for both old and new audiences. Fourth, diversify the fleet across all platforms. The recent merger forming Paramount Skydance has brought new leadership, and with it, a new focus on bringing Star Trek back to movie theaters. While the exact details are still taking shape, multiple film projects are in development, including a prequel origin story and talk of a final chapter for the Kelvin Timeline crew. The strategy should be to create a varied ecosystem. This allows for big screen event films to coexist with a diverse slate of streaming shows, animated series, and even audio dramas, maximizing the franchise's reach. And finally, and most critically, unify the franchise. For over a decade, Star Trek's films and television rights were separate, creating a fractured universe. That division, thankfully, was officially ended with the Viacom-CBS merger back in 2019, bringing everything back under one roof. Now, the new leadership at Paramount Skydance can now learn a key lesson from the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but not making the same mistakes. That is, make it accessible to new viewers without feeling like homework, and rewarding the old fans without being too insular. Crossovers and connections should be bonuses, not prerequisites. That approach will make the universe accessible by rewarding investment across the franchise without punishing casual viewers, while still enabling powerful moments like legacy characters mentoring new ones. So, now turning to Section 5, the last point, a vision of the future. Imagine a Star Trek universe where this roadmap is realized. A universe where you can watch an epic cinematic adventure in the theaters, then go home to stream a thoughtful episodic series about deep space exploration. A universe where a gritty espionage-themed movie can exist alongside a hopeful series about young cadets finding their place among the stars. It's a vision of a franchise that is confident in its identity, vast in its scope, and accessible to all. Legacy characters appear not just for a nostalgic cameo, but to pass the torch, their wisdom and experience providing the foundation for the next generation's adventures. This is a Star Trek that feels both timeless and modern, honoring its past while boldly charting its future. Star Trek's relevance has never come from being the most action-packed or most visually spectacular show on television. Its power has always been about its ideas. Its unwavering belief in the potential of humanity. The path forward is not a retreat to the past, nor is it a wholesale abandonment of its principles for modern trends. It's a synthesis by embracing diverse storytelling, focusing on character-driven philosophy, and building a truly united universe. Star Trek can do more than just survive. It can thrive. It can once it become the beacon of optimism the world so desperately needs, reminding us all that the final frontier is not just a place, but a promise of a better future we can build together. So that's my roadmap for how Star Trek can stay relevant. But this is a conversation. The future of this franchise belongs to all of us. What do you think? What do you think is the one thing you believe Star Trek absolutely must do to succeed in the years to come? Leave your comments and your thoughts in the comments below. And for even more Trek Talk, be sure to follow our podcast here on YouTube, and also go to our website, www.cinenerdpodcast.com. And if you enjoyed this analysis, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more deep dives into the final frontier. Live long and prosper.